everyone, I'm Coach Chris. Thanks for joining. I'm calling this video series Boston Marathon Sights and Sounds. Today I'm going to give some insights into bib pickup, the Expo, and FanFest. Later on, I'll cover other aspects of race weekend. One thing I want to note here at the beginning regarding the Expo, it has changed over the years. So when I attended my first Boston Marathon 6 years ago, the Expo was different in some fundamental ways. COVID brought more changes, and then the most recent Expo in 2023 was different yet again. This coming year, we have a brand new title sponsor in Bank of America, which could potentially bring more changes. I don't have a crystal ball with the ability to tell you what this year will include, but I can explain what we've seen in the past, and that's what I'll do. All right, let's dive in. Race weekend action all occurs in a relatively small area, less than a 2-mile span. That's it. I'll have more maps throughout, but what you primarily want to know is the Expo and the finish line too are in Boston's Back Bay. That is this area to the west of downtown Boston. The Boston Marathon Expo takes place at the Heinz Center. Expo hours are Friday 11 to 6, Saturday 9 to 6, and Sunday 9 to 6. The Heinz Center has two entrances. The main entrance is on Boylston Street, and the back entrance is from the Prudential Center. The Prudential Center is basically a big mall. There's an abundance of shops and eateries inside. There's also direct connection to the Sheraton Hotel and the Mandarin Oriental here. If instead you happen to be staying at the Westin Copley or the Marriott Copley, you can connect via indoor sky bridge. Everyone is welcome to visit the Expo, runners and non-runners alike, but everyone who enters must go through security. The Prudential Center entrance often has shorter security lines than those at the main entrance. If you arrive to Boylston to find a long wait, I recommend going around. The other nice part about the mall entrance is it keeps you inside and warm if conditions outside are miserable. For those not staying right in Back Bay, you'll want to take the T to the Expo and other race weekend happenings. The T is another name for the subway or the local train in Boston. There are essentially 5 stops off the Green Line that you will use for race weekend. Those stops are Heinz, Prudential, Copley, Arlington, and Boylston. There's also a commuter rail which runs outside Boston proper. If you have spectators who will want to see you in the early parts of the race, they'll take the commuter rail. The commuter rail runs out towards Hopkinton and Framingham. There are 2 stops near the Expo. Those are the Heinz Center stop near the main entrance and the Prudential Center stop near the back entrance. Back to the Expo main entrance. Of the 3 days the Expo is open, Friday to Sunday, Friday as the weekday and the first day is the least busy option. But certainly it's always pretty crowded. This is a major after all. The streets are too, especially Boylston. One thing I want to point out is those metal barriers you see lining the roadway. These are set up all along Boylston to keep people on the sidewalks while the streets remain open to cars. The only issue is the sidewalks can pretty easily get jammed up and bottlenecked. So while it is exciting to soak up that race weekend vibe, just realize you're going to need some patience to get around. Inside the Expo, you'll see there's essentially 2 separate parts. There's the bib pickup section, and there's the area where individual vendors set up their booths. In Boston, these are on 2 different floors. As an order of priority, putting the most important first, I recommend picking up your bib as soon as possible. No one else can pick up your bib. It must be you in person with your ID prior to race day. It's super important to get this done as you'll need your bib and bag for the bus to the start. Don't worry about knowing which way to go for bib pickup. There's a lot of people to follow and signage the whole way along. But if you get turned around, You'll see volunteers throughout who will happily help you as well. Once upstairs, you'll be directed to a numbered booth. The colors correspond to your assigned wave. There are 4 waves: red, wave 1, white, wave 2, blue, wave 3, and yellow, wave 4. Bib numbers are assigned by your submitted time, fastest to slowest, with a few exceptions in there. You'll have your bib information in confirmation forms several weeks before race weekend. Here's a glimpse of everything that came in the bag in 2023. You'll also receive your official long-sleeved Adidas race shirt. These are usually pretty nice in my opinion, and they'll come in the traditional Boston blue or yellow. Here we are entering the vendor section of the expo on the ground level. This is where the shopping takes place and all those fun photo opportunities. There are 2 sections of the ground level expo. The BAA calls these sections the Sponsor Pavilion and the Marathon Marketplace. The Sponsor Pavilion is the area you will enter first, and the primary vendor here is Adidas. That's the official merch provider. Last year you entered and that was the very first thing you saw. You'll also see these long lines just to get into the Adidas section of the expo. If this is part of your expo plan, be sure to budget lots of time. Side note, there are other ways to get Adidas gear without buying it at the expo. There are very few items from Adidas that are truly expo unique. Those items are Spike the stuffed unicorn, the mugs, the pins, small accessories basically. Everything else is online or at FanFest. FanFest store is smaller, but you'll find most of the main items for sale there. The celebration jacket, of course, is there, plus several other clothing options, all with a shorter wait. Moreover, if you live in the US, I would simply order online. Order multiple sizes if you want and send back what you don't plan to keep. You don't necessarily have to fight these crowds on race weekend, unless, say, you live abroad and you desperately want a stuffed Spike unicorn. Of course, you can't go to the expo without taking several dozen pictures of yourself with your bib. You'll find plenty of opportunities for that in Boston. That is one thing that hasn't gone away with expo changes. Speaking of change, here's a view of the expo that includes the non-principal sponsors. One of the primary changes in recent years has been the absence of truly running-related booths. Here we have a T-Mobile display. In the old days, you would have found Brooks and Asics and OOFOS. All the major running brands would be represented at the expo. Well, in 2023, if you wanted to shop any of these brands, you'd have to make your way to one of the pop-up shops. Pop-ups are temporary stores, and for Boston, these basically all set up along Newbury Street. Newbury Street is not far from the Heinz Center. It's 1 block north of Boylston. Newbury Street is a series of historic brownstones with small shops on the lower floors. There are some cute cafes, bakeries, and coffee shops interspersed too. One nice thing about having different pop-ups that are separate from the expo is you can skip pushing through thousands of people all jumbled together if you just want to see what Asics has, or Brooks, or Puma, or any of a number of other brands. See what you want, skip what you don't. Each of these pop-ups will also have their own events and shakeouts that leave from the store. So these stores become their own little world. The downside of this is for those who want to see everything from everyone. That requires a lot of individual reconnaissance. Making our way to another famous street in Boston, this is the famous final turn of the marathon. This is the corner of Boylston and Hereford. You can see the 3 stripes here. That's the blue line that marks the course. It doesn't go the whole way along, but it is here towards the finish. And there in the distance, you can see the finish line. This corner is exactly 1 block from the main entrance of the Heinz Center. On Sunday, this length of Boylston is blocked to cars so you can walk the entire final 600 meters of the race. That's roughly 3.5 blocks. If you walk east on Boylston to the finish line, then continue past it, you'll come to FanFest. This is facing west on Boylston, past the finish line. Here, near FanFest, is the Old South Church, where on Sunday you can attend the blessing of the runners. FanFest has several different parts to it. There's a beer garden, a small broadcast stage, information booth, a VIP tent, a few vendor booths, and another large stage that's used for bands and concerts. FanFest takes place in Copley Square Park in front of the Marriott Copley. The precise schedule for talks and bands will be posted on the BAA website, but not until closer to race day itself. Just know there will be something throughout each day of the entire weekend, Friday to Sunday.
People are leaving and getting, going to their dinner reservations probably.
For those shoppers out there, as I mentioned earlier in this video, FanFest has an Adidas store. It's positioned in the southeast corner of the park. While you won't be able to find those small accessory items here, like mugs, cups, and pins, that kind of thing, you will have your pick of clothing, all with much shorter lines than you'll find at the Expo. Okay, that basically covers those important race weekend happenings. One thing I didn't mention, and I will touch on now because it is a personal favorite, is the brand shakeouts, giveaways, elite meet and greets, and panel discussions. You could spend all weekend, Friday to Sunday, attending these free special events. There are tons. The exact who, what, when, and where won't be announced until very close to, generally 1 to 2 weeks prior, no sooner. In order to find these special events, you'll want to do a few things. 1, search on Eventbrite. 2, follow your favorite elite runners on social media, Instagram and Twitter, Facebook, all of them. Be sure to look at their stories, not just their posts. And 3, follow your favorite brands on social media. For those first timers, I hope you've learned some things that will help make your Boston Marathon weekend incredible. See you all out there on Patriots Day.